The SNES, Nintendo's super flagship in the early 90s. Released in Europe in 1992, it was the definition of video gaming. I still remember Christmas Eve that year, where I ripped open the wrapping paper. I was so excited I forgot to leave the house for a week. Now, years have passed, and today it still looks in line with the times. This, by the way, is the European PAL version, the SNSP-001A model, that looked similar to the Japanese version. And today, the time has come to refurbish this thing. This is the first of a series of videos about European gaming consoles, starting with the Super Nintendo, and then we go back to the 80s Game Boy, the NES, back to the Atari ST and the Atari 2600. Okay, starting by taking out the screws. This is a pity on the SNES if you don't have the appropriate tools. They used security screws, and at this point, about a week ago, I did not have the matching screw bits that came in 2 days ago now. So here I use a hexagon driving bit with a piece of gaffer tape to make it grab onto the inverted Torx head. As the screws are pretty tightened up, I use a pair of pliers to get some little extra grip. The PCB is the same as in the US version, and I would not wonder if you could simply swap them out. The cartridge lever is mounted in the same way, even it looks a little bit different. Now, I get rid of all the metal parts as I am planning to brighten up the casing. First I get me a bin of warm soapy water and start scrubbing the housing to remove any dirt and dust. And man, this thing is crusted with all kind of gunk. On spots where soap doesn't help, I use a toothbrush and some baking soda. For brightening yellowed plastic, I spent a whole evening watching YouTube videos, and there are hundreds of them. I know that there are particular products such as Retrobright on the market, but how I wanted to start right now. So knowing of having some hydrogen peroxide in my shop, I first wanted to try something a little bit less aggressive to brighten the plastic. Lots of you guys recommend hair bleaching agents, but here in Europe it mostly contains out of this two-part stuff. So I got me this hair bleach, which was the strongest of their kind they had in the store. As in Europe the packing mostly don't tell any details about ingredients, I first have to find out which of this stuff is actually the active chemical. There is the gel, the cream, 2 sachets of a white powder. So I grab me a piece of cloth and try it out first, starting only with some gel, some cream, the mysterious powder mixed with the cream, some gel and cream, and some gel mixed with the white powder, to find out what makes a reaction. After 20 minutes, it seems that the gel and the cream reacted a little, so I will go with those two components. To enhance the reaction, I use a scoop of laundry oxy cleaner, some hand wash cream, you can use shower gel as well, and the gel and cream I got from the hair bleaching kit. I sure made a little research beforehand to not mix anything dangerous together, as you should never mix chemicals without knowing if they may react. On a sheet of plastic wrap I start spreading the mixture onto the plastic shell. I try to make it a thick even layer on both sides and every little notch. Then I wrap it up in the plastic foil and expose the parts to sunlight for the rest of the day. After a while I start to lose hope that this stuff even works, as nothing really seemed to happen. So the next day I go full throttle and went to my shop, picking up the bottle of the 40% hydrogen peroxide in a ratio of 25 to 75% of cream soap. I mix me a pretty powerful solution of what I call nuclear Retrobright. This stuff decoralizes everything and is highly oxidant, so be very careful and wear protection gear such as safety glasses and gloves. I also pulled out a palm tree growing lamp out of my garage to create my own sunlight. Again, this stuff is so oxidant that a tiny hole in my gloves forced me to interrupt and wash my hands, as this stuff stings like needles when it gets in contact with your skin. But the result is fantastic the next morning. The yellow is almost gone and I decided to just let it sit for another couple of hours under the UV light. In the meantime, I cleaned the PCB with some Q-tips and alcohol or rubbing alcohol. Also, I cleaned the cables, the controllers, the power supply and the games, of course. Now, after a total of 17 hours, the casing returned to its original color. So I rinsed them off under running water so they are ready for the reassembling. Starting with the upper shell by reinstalling the cartridge cover and its spring, followed by the power eject and reset button. Placing back the little diffuser knob for the power indicator and the dark gray cover plate, that clicks in place. By the way, I use some lever tools I had bought once to replace the screen of an iPad. They come in pretty handy to bend back some of the snap-on plastic latches. Clicking in the extension port cover before turning the undershell over, placing back the two metal screw brackets. Placing back in the main PCB assembly is pretty simple, as it fits exactly in the shape of the housing. The cartridge lever has a little spring that has to be placed back into position. There are two little cutouts for the spring to grab into. Time to screw everything back together. I use two little cups where I sorted the screws, but there are only two kinds of screws used in the Super Nintendo. Little Phillips ones for all of the inside electronics and the inverted Torx security screws for the case. Now, time to fuse the two shells back together, testing the buttons if they run freely and put back in the screws. And wow, like fresh out of the package. I am very satisfied with the result. It actually looks brand new. Here and there sure are some minor scratches, but all in all, this thing looks awesome.
Ja, Super Nintendo erobert die Welt. Die Super Nintendo 16-Bit-Technologie eröffnet hier völlig neue Dimensionen. 32.000 Farben erobern den Bildschirm. Der digitale Super Stereo Sound bläst dir um die Ohren. Und die Super 3D-Grafik bringt dich voll ins Spiel.
And man, this thing is still so much fun. Me as a nostalgic, playing the old games on the original console is just a blast and is not comparable with any new released systems. And can you imagine, the save games are still on all of the cartridges even after 27 years. Alright guys, give me a thumbs up if you liked the video. Episode 2 will be online next Sunday at the latest. And leave a comment below and please subscribe to my channel. See ya!